If you're riding the CRF110F and you're a full-size rider, there's a few mods you're going to want to make to this bike. One is going to be the suspension. We're talking about the front forks today. So we're doing two mods that complement each other. We're installing the BBR front fork springs. They're going to be for a heavier weight. And then the damping rod set complements those. And it's not only going to add an inch of travel onto the front forks, but you're also going to have better damping. It has different sizes of damping orifices, and it's going to make the bike feel a lot better than it does in the stock trim. So with that being said, this stuff is pretty simple to install. Let's go ahead and get started. To get this done, we have a few parts from BBR. So this is the front fork spring set, comes with the springs and preload spacers. And then this is the damping rod set. So it comes with both damping rods. And if you're installing those, you want to choose which oil you need. So if you're up to 150 pounds, you're going to want the 10 weight oil. 150 to 200, you're going to want the 15 weight, and then 200 plus is the 20 weight. If you're not installing these damping rods, then you're just going to be going with 20 weight oil if you're an adult riding this bike and just putting these springs in. So with all that said, we're also using some Loctite and suspension clean. You need a drain pan, measuring cup, and an oil height level setting tool. This one's from Tusk. Besides that, you're going to need suspension soft jaws or a suspension vise, and then just common hand tools, including a torque wrench. We're also using safety glasses, rubber gloves, and some rags. And if you need any of the parts or chemicals, you can find that stuff on our website. Just click the link in the description below. I'm going to loosen the top pinch bolt on each side of the triple clamp. So we're just using a 12mm socket right there. Got a center bolt right on the bottom. We're just going to crack this loose. We don't want to dump oil everywhere. And I've got a 17mm combo wrench, and I'm going to loosen up the fork cap. We're going to free up the brake line and remove the wheel. And we're just going to slide the brakes out of the side. And then from here, all you have to do is loosen up that lower pinch bolt on each side and remove the forks. Over at the bench, we have our fork in the vise. We need to remove the cap. So we're using our 17mm wrench. You can keep some pressure applied so it doesn't just pop off. So I'll take the cap off. And this collar or the spacer, the oil was kind of holding it in there, but I can pull it out now, or when I dump the oil, you can just dump this into a drain pan and cover up this opening, because there's going to be a little washer that you need to catch, and then the spring. And then just pump that up and down a few times to get all the oil out. And from here, I'm going to clamp that lower fork tube in the vise. Now I'm going to temporarily reinstall my spring and spacer. You can apply a little bit of pressure on there to help loosen up this center bolt on the bottom. But again, we already broke it loose on the bike. And just unthread it all the way. And I'll remove that spacer and spring. I'm going to tip the fork upside down. We've got the stock damping rod and a top out spring. From here, if all your parts are real dirty, make sure you get them cleaned up, but this is looking real clean. We can take, there's a little plastic ring on top of the old damping rod. You want to transfer that over to the new one. Make sure that's not broken, and if it looks worn out, definitely get it replaced, but this one's looking good. Okay, next we're going to clean off the center bolt. Make sure all the old Loctite is cleaned off. You can install a new crush washer. If the old one is in good condition, you can probably get by, but we recommend installing a new one. Now, normally you don't need to pull this fork tube out, but if for some reason you pulled up on the tube and you think that bottoming cone came out, you want to make sure that's in there. And if you need to, you can use just a little bit of grease to hold it on. I'm going to put this back into that lower tube. Make sure that's clean and you've got lube on it. And from here, we can take the new damping rod. You can go ahead and install this back on to your fork. Now, before I do that, I just want to point out, you can see the orifice on this one. It's quite a bit smaller than the other. Same thing at the top. You only have one up here instead of two. It's going to give you better damping, and this one adds an inch to the length of your fork. So I'm going to slide that in. Then we have one of our springs. Now the stock spring is directional. These ones are not. So we're just going to slide this in. So when you slide the damping rod in, put that spring on there, you want to get a pick or small screwdriver, make sure everything is lined up. You can usually feel it drop in just a little bit further. Then we can take the center bolt. We've got just a little bit of Loctite on that. We're going to thread that in place. And I'm going to apply just a little bit of pressure to that spring when I do that. And if this bolt is not sticking out like this when you're trying to thread it in, it means something is not lined up in here. You want to check your work. And we have that stock spring seat or washer. I'm going to put that on top of this spring. And we got the BBR spacer. Sometimes these are going to be anodized. And then I've got a fork cap. I'm going to thread all of this together. And we're going to torque that center bolt to 15 foot-pounds. And to keep the damper rod from moving, you're going to press down on the fork tube. Okay, once you have that torqued, you're going to remove that spring. And we're going to add 175 milliliters of oil and then set the oil height. We're just going to pump the fork tube up and down a few times to get that oil dispersed. And you want to let that settle for a few minutes and let any air bubbles come to the top. In the meantime, I'm going to adjust my fork oil level tool to 140 millimeters. Then you want to stick the tool down in there and pull the fluid out until it doesn't come out anymore. So right there, we're at 140 millimeters. And this measurement is pretty crucial. You don't want to overfill this thing. This is a different size spring, so you want to use the correct oil height for it. After that, you can install your spring. We've got that stock washer, the spacer, and the cap. And we'll bottom out that fork cap. And once this is back on the bike, you want to torque it to 16 foot-pounds. And with that one done, we'll do those same steps on the other fork. That's it for the front suspension mods on your Honda CRF110. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments below. And if you need any parts for your machine, whether it's the BBR fork springs, the damping rod set, or the oil, we've got that stuff on our website. Just click the link in the description below. And if you want to see more helpful content like this, subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.